Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Your Spiritual Journey. This is Dr. Bob, and this is the space and the place where we talk about things important to your soul. As always, I just ask that if you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, like us, and if you're just streaming us, for you and those on YouTube, consider supporting us on Patreon because we'd like to be around for a long time to come. So today's guest has a familial relationship with a prior guest. On episode 55, Meir Ezra was our guest, and as I look at our numbers, he's one of our more popular guests, so his numbers are pretty good. A lot of people have tuned in to what he had to say, and the person you're going to meet today is his son, Gal or Gal?
Yeah, either way, but yeah, Gal Ezra. Yes.
Gal Ezra.
Yes.
And he's the brains behind the operation. In that he's the one who first contacted me to have his father on the podcast. And I was so curious about him that we've gotten together again because he's an interesting fellow, an entrepreneur on his own part. He does work with his father on Guaranteed Prosperity, which is the sort of umbrella organization that they both have multiple resources on their website. But he's an entrepreneur in his own right. So I'm going to let him introduce himself and give you the scoop of his spiritual journey from childhood until now. The mic's all yours, Gal.
Thank you very much, Bob. It's an honor to be on, and I'm really glad. I didn't know that my dad's numbers did so well. I'm really glad we made it happen for him to be on, and thank you for having me on as well. He really is a genius beyond measure, and if you're listening to this and haven't yet heard his episode, I encourage anyone to go and see it. It's amazing what he has to say. And what we do over at Guaranteed Prosperity is something very unique in that we guarantee our results. So we say that if you develop the person and you handle them spiritually, which we'll talk about, then you will have the results in the physical universe. We have a spiritual universe and a physical universe. If you improve the individual, the results will show themselves in the physical universe. And if you don't have results physically, which you need to have, you need to be able to manage in this crazy world, then there's something to handle personally. And so that's what we do, a combination of teaching personal development and also teaching you hard business skills, actual business skills that ultimately get you to make a lot of money ethically while having success across all the various parts of life. So that's what we do at Guaranteed Prosperity. What I do is work very closely in the company. My dad started that company many years ago. I'm now more involved in it, but I started as an entrepreneur on my own when I was about 22. Within a few years, I had $1 million company based out of Cape Town, South Africa, very successful, and just continued doing more things. I have a finance business, I have properties, Airbnb, hotels, investments, etc. So I ended up succeeding on that front. And I realized that the reason that I had success was because I had a mentor, which was my father. And that was my lucky thing. It wasn't that I started off with a bunch of money or that I had a bunch of whatever, good luck. I had a bunch of knowledge. The knowledge was my gift. And the gift, I took that knowledge and applied it. And that knowledge, that coaching, that mentorship that I had in the form of my father was the key to my success. And I realized that everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs a mentor. And it doesn't matter if you're LeBron James or Conor McGregor or Picasso, they all had coaches and they had mentors and they had people that they learned from. And that was the key to their success. So I felt it as an obligation to pass that on to others. And that's why I'm now so much more heavily involved in Guaranteed Prosperity and talking about what we do there, and which we'll talk about.
Okay, I'd like to back you up now to your personal story. Uh,
Sure.
you are coming to us from South Africa, correct?
Yes, yes. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa.
And you grew up, I imagine, in Israel, yes?
No, so actually, I mean, I'm kind of a mix, right? The accent's always hard to place. I was born in Cape Town. I lived here until I was 6 years old. Then we moved to the US, my whole family. As a kid, I moved to the US and I lived in the US until I was 19. And
What
then at
part of the
19,
U.S.?
Florida, in Tampa, Florida, that area.
Okay,
And then I moved at 19 back to Cape Town, and I've been in Cape Town ever since. So while both my parents are Israeli and Hebrew is my native language, we speak Hebrew at home. I never really lived there. We go there a lot. I mean, we went there as I was growing up, on and off, a month at a time or whatever. But I never lived in Israel. I lived in Cape Town or Florida, just broken up throughout my life.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
glad we
And
got
now
that
my
one
wife is
straight.
Floridian. Yeah, yeah. My wife
Oh,
now is Floridian, so now we go to Florida even more, and yeah, I'm most of my life, probably the next few years, I'll be spending more and more time in Florida.
okay. So
Yeah.
you grew up Jewish, I'm assuming.
Yes, Jewish, although we were never very religious. I would say more the traditions of Judaism. Never extremely religious, but with a lot of the philosophies of just a variety of different teachings. I think is kind of what I was instilled with throughout my life.
Okay, so my friends who are Jewish call that a culture. I'm a cultural Jew. I'm not a religious Jew,
Yeah,
but I'm a cultural Jew, right?
yeah. I call that Jew-ish, like kind of Jewish, kind of Jew, kind of not ish. Yeah.
Okay, so can you talk about your childhood a bit and how you grew spiritually through that childhood and talk about university life maybe and how all of this came together.
100%. So, first of all, from the age of 0, my parents spoke to me like I was an adult. Not, it didn't mean that I had the privileges of an adult, of course. It's not like I could stay up late and eat candy until into the late hours or whatever. I was a kid, but I was spoken to like I understand what is being talked about. I was never spoken to like uh, I'm just a kid that doesn't get it. My parents always assumed that I know. The spirit, if we have to define it, or one of its main characteristics, is that thing that knows. A spirit knows. You and every listener knows. And if you ever had that situation where you met someone or you had some kind of a situation in life and you said, I knew it. Something went wrong and you said, I knew I should have. That feeling of I knew it is that spiritual quality that you kind of neglected. Because the truth is that you know. That's the native state is you know. A lot of stuff comes throughout life that blocks that knowingness, but you know. So my parents always spoke to me like I know. I was brought in, my dad is a businessman and an entrepreneur, and I was sitting in on high level meetings with him as a 3 year old. I was sitting there and I was listening. And my parents had black tie events that they were invited to, ballrooms. And I was one of the only kids there in a tuxedo in it with them as a little 6 year old or whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that was a big key is they assumed that I know. And it didn't mean that they spoke to me in ways that I didn't understand. Obviously, they didn't come and say, "Look, throwing around big words that a kid wouldn't get." But they spoke to me like I know, and they explained things to me fully. They didn't sugarcoat. They explained it, and I would have questions as a kid about life, and my dad would explain it to me. And of course, I'm a kid, so it's not like he used jargon that was outside of my vocabulary. He explained it to me in words I could understand, but he knew that I knew. And I think that was a very key, pivotal part of my childhood. Plus, I was flooded with love. And that was, I think, a very big part because I think most kids, even if the parents love them, the parents don't really shower with love. And my parents showered with love, and any little accomplishment was made to be the biggest accomplishment. And it was told around the dinner table. And it was, we had guests over and they would say, oh, tell what about, what you told us today. And it was like, oh, I don't know, something small that happened at school, but it was celebrated. So the wins were celebrated. And I think that's also a very big part. One of the things my dad teaches is that the definition of success is the sum of all validated improvements. Validated, meaning you say, hey, well done, pat yourself on the back, you validate it. An improvement is something that goes better than it was before. And the sum is adding it all up. So if you say, wow, this was good, and this was good, and this was good, all the little validated improvements, sum of all the validated improvement, that was good, and that was good, and that was good, boom, you have success. And that's important as a business owner. It's important as just a person, and it's important for children to validate the little improvements. And as opposed to what most people do, which is they point out all the tiny flaws. Most people look in the mirror and they point out every single flaw. Most people look back at their day and they point out every single thing that didn't go perfect. So we're professionals at finding the negatives. The trick is to emphasize the positives. And so as a kid, the improvements were validated. There was a ton of love. And there was this assumption that I'm not a different species. Most people look at kids as like another species. It's like you have human beings that are adults, you have dogs, you have invertebrates, you have bacteria, you have children, you have birds, you have different species in the world. And children are like a different species that is just like no, I was treated like a human being that has thoughts, that has feelings, that has ambitions, but just in a small body. And that's the difference, is that you are, and that's a thing that I'm for sure taking forward into my having kids, is they're just an adult in a small body. And of course they need to grow and they need to improve. And there's a lot they're not, it doesn't mean that they get all the privileges of an adult, but the way I speak to them is not like they're a different species, right? So that was the foundational part to answer your question about how I grew up. And I can go forward from there, unless you have any questions so far.
Well, I guess I'm curious to know if you have any siblings or are you an only child?
Yeah, I have siblings. Funny enough, I was an only child for 10 years. And then my parents had my sister and my brother. Same parents, just they waited for a while. So I had the feeling of an only child for a while, but I was begging them the entire time I wanted siblings. So eventually they gave me and the family, we had my sister and then they had my brother. So I'm 10 years apart from my sister and 13 years apart from my brother. And we're very close despite the age gap. And yeah, we're a very, very close family. We talk every day, yeah. And they're also, it's interesting because I would say me and my siblings are different I mean, just different people in general. We're different, but so many qualities are similar, I think, foundationally, but each of us has our own strength. Like, for example, my brother is extremely good technically. Like if you put him in front of a engine, he's amazing. If you put me in front of an engine, I have no idea what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? So he's got a technical strength, But he's less interested, for example, at the moment, he is younger than me, but at the moment he's less interested in building businesses, whereas that's more my passion. My sister is incredibly creative, incredibly trendy, incredibly smart, super witty, funny, and she also has a bit of both. But she has, I would say, she maybe leans a little bit more towards the professional side, whereas my brother, as I said, is super strong on the technical side. So we all have our characteristics, and we're very close.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So, as you considered what track you were going to pursue in life, and uh, I guess I was assuming you went to university. Uh, how
I
did
actually didn't. I didn't.
you did? Okay, I shouldn't assume that then. Uh, and I'm trying to learn not to assume those kinds of things because on a recent podcast, I interviewed somebody who started an extremely successful business uh, who barely made it out of high school because because he wasn't really good at following the rules and sitting in a chair. You know, he needed to be out there doing things, and he's a very successful businessman. So, uh,
Mhm.
although college is a traditional route, it's not the only route, that's for sure. So,
Yeah, I mean, I
what
can
is
touch
your,
upon that if you want for me. Yeah.
yeah, talk about your route and how that's worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I went to a fantastic school that was kind of a program that took me through from pretty much I started going to that school at the age of 6, and I ended up going through middle school and high school through this program. Really, really good school. It's called the Delphinian School. It's amazing, amazing program that essentially, I mean, there's celebrity kids. I went to school with celebrity kids at very high level high school, and they basically are extremely good at getting kids into the top universities in the world, and they give you a very real and very challenging and very thorough education. We read tons of books. We learned leadership, and we did projects, and the high school portion of it was a boarding school. Most people think boarding school, and my friends would say, "Oh my God, you're going to boarding school. What did you do? Like you must have been a bad kid." But this was a boarding school that was like, no, I'm going by choice. It's like an amazing school, and I want to go and like immerse myself in their program. So unbelievable school, and it basically their principle, which is also very interesting to note. I'm assuming you have a lot of parents that listen. Their basic principle is two things. Number one, you need to pass with 100% what you study. When any test that we did, any program that we finished, the passing standard was 100%, meaning our scores needed to be 100%. These days, these days you can pass at 70 or something like that. I don't even know, 70, 60. For us, it was 100% pass. If you're around the 90 mark, you go back, find what you misunderstood and correct it and get 100%. And if you're below, I think it was 87, you failed and you have to redo the course. These days, failure is like 40% or something in most schools. So for us, it was 100% understanding. You don't want a pilot that knows 60%, that knows how to take off, fly, but doesn't know how to land. You understand? That was the same principle in this school. They want you to know how to fly, take off, land. You don't want to be a doctor that 60% knows what they're doing. You want to know what you're doing. And the truth is that most doctors, and I'm assuming that you can back it up, but most doctors learn most of what they know not in the school. They learn it from practicality.
Right.
Most doctors don't remember, most people, period, most people that study don't remember most of what they've studied. They sit there for years. And if I ask the average person to tell me 1% of what they remember from school, They won't be able to. So it just shows you that it's just people just go in and pass a test. Here they said, look, the way to get 100% is by knowing to apply the data, not memorizing. Most people teach you memorize the data so you can pass the test. You become a mental machine. I remember there's a question, I answer, just memory. Here they said you're not memorizing. We want you to know it. If you know it, we can give you any test and you will answer correctly because you know it. Like somebody can give me a test today on how to drive a car. I'll pass the test. I know how to drive. It's not going to be hard for me to pass a driving test. I've been driving. I know how to drive, so it won't be a problem. Same thing with learning at the school. So that's number one, 100% passing standard. And how you get there, the time. So most schools, how much you learn is variable. You maybe learned 80%, 70%, 60%. The knowledge you leave the class with is variable. The time is constant. 1 year, move up a grade. 1 year, move up a grade. It's a constant on the time, variable on the knowledge. Here they said, no, no, no. Constant on the knowledge, you're going to get 100%. The time is the variable. If you're a fast student, you'll get to 100% quickly. And if you're a slower student, that's totally fine. We'll work with you, but you'll get to 100%. So they totally flipped the model. It's an incredible school. And they prepare you for university. I went in there from day one and I said, look, guys, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm not planning on going to university. And, for most of the kids, they really encourage them to know, but, it's the right path and blah, blah, blah. And at one point, the headmistress pulled me aside and said, look, of all the kids, you're the one that we never felt the need to push towards university because we can really see that you have this determination and clearness towards being an entrepreneur. So they never pushed me to join university. It was just always crystal clear, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And I think if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you do it by being in practice, practically going out there and doing it. And the one caveat is you need to make sure that as an entrepreneur, you continuously learn even more than the normal person, because now you got to go out there on your own. So you got to gain more knowledge. And so you have to emphasize yourself on knowing what to do. And you do that by learning, picking specific things and totally learning it. Whereas most people say, I'm not going to college, and then they blow their years away and they don't actually still invest in themselves to learn. So for me, it was clear, no university. However, I'm going to continue learning. And that's sort of what I did. So I did that. Then at 19, I can go into the next few years until my first business, but that's what came next. And that's to answer the university question.
Okay. It sounds like your that boarding school experience was equivalent to a university education when you think about the standards. So
100%.
Yeah.
It really was. It really was above and beyond the normal high school. You're right.
Yeah. So this school, I take it, is in South Africa, yes?
No, actually, the school, so the first part before I went to the boarding school was actually in Florida. They have a few branches across the United States. And then the boarding school was in Oregon. So at about 15, or just before 16, I started going to this boarding school. And I started to learn independence, essentially. I had to do my own laundry, and I had to keep my room clean, and all this stuff as like a 16-year-old, which was really good, really, really good. I again, as I said, I genuinely enjoyed it. But it was a challenging program, and it was good. It put some hair on the chest, as they say, and so that was in Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my understanding is that wives really appreciate men who can do all those things.
Yes, that's true. That's 100% true.
Yeah. Okay, so your your father's business, which you also work in, Guaranteed Prosperity, has a spiritual component to it. So
Yes.
if we were to look at your two businesses, is there a spiritual component there that also complements them?
I would say that the other businesses I have are pretty cleanly just clean cut businesses. One is a finance business, the other does property. And the previous ones that I had that I started with was events. So I would say that those don't have as much of a spiritual component, although I always fully understood that it's key to improve the individuals in the business, whether it's one of my staff that's at a very low position or it's one of the executives. The more that I improve them individually, the more the business benefits. So internally, we certainly understood that it's important spiritually to develop people, but the business themselves didn't offer a spiritual product as such. Whereas Guaranteed Prosperity, it does. It works on improving people.
Okay. Uh,
Yeah.
so it sounds like uh, the tenets and the core things that are part of Guaranteed Prosperity are so much a part of you that they're just expressed automatically in your business acumen and uh, what you do with that. Is that
100%. That's right.
a fair assessment?
Totally. 100%. I can see that it's the key. And I often wonder, how does anybody make it without it? And it's not even to say that it's specifically what we teach at Guaranteed Prosperity, but how does anybody succeed without improving spiritually in some way, shape, or form? Because, the one thing that I think needs to be said is, on the one hand, you cannot be only physical and make it. In other words, you can't have lots of money and cars and, I don't know, houses and watches and feel that everything is fulfilled, because it's not. You're not. There's a huge gaping gap spiritually that you're going to have to address if you actually want to truly have success in all parts of life. That being said, there's many people that are spiritual and have, they work on themselves and they do all kinds of whatever things that they've found. And we can really talk more about spirituality as you direct the conversation. But they're very spiritual, but physically things are a mess, total mess, huge debts. They cannot balance checkbook. Their house is a disaster. Their car is cluttered. I mean, from the little things, your car is just
Yeah.
whoa. And that immediately tells me, look, with all due respect, there's no way that you have success spiritually, because they go hand in hand. You're living in a physical universe, meaning this world has matter, there's energy, there's space, there's time. It's a game, it's a big game. This is all a big, big, big game that you're in. And if you can't make it in this game of life, in the physical universe, then there's things that is missing spiritually, which is totally fine. You're missing some knowledge and you can improve, but you're not yet spiritual if there's no results physically. So we're going for both. That's what we're looking at. You can't be hungry and spiritual. I'm sorry. If you can't be poor and spiritual, how can you think about spirituality while you can't put food on the table? It doesn't work together.
Yeah. So something that I like to ask my guests, actually two things. One is, do you personally have any spiritual practices that you do on a daily or a weekly basis that kind of feed your soul?
What do you mean by feed my soul? What do you mean by that?
Well, when I think about things that energize my day or uh, help with my purpose for the day or my intention, uh, I start each day with some particular, say, meditation as well as qigong, some physical activity that helps bring in the energy of the universe to me, so that then I can use that during the rest of the day. So that's what I
Oh,
would say is a spiritual practice that feeds my soul. Okay.
okay, okay, I get you. That amazing, amazing that you do that. And what do you mean me? I encourage the listeners to think about who is me? What is me? How would you, Bob, how would you explain me?
Okay, that's we're flipping this interview here. Uh,
You're
it's
speaking on
and
behalf
I
of your
think it's
listeners, if you can think of it that way. What would the average person say is me, right?
yeah, I I and now you're sounding a lot like your father, but that's all right. Uh,
I'll take it as a big compliment.
okay, uh, and this has to do with our concept of I am. When I say I am, then how do I define that I? And that's the me. So
Yeah.
that I is uh, that inner part of me that has a perspective and a viewpoint and a belief about myself, and actually a series of beliefs about how the universe works, how I fit within that universe, and that interconnection, that relationship between myself and the universe.
Mhm.
So, as I define myself and what I believe to be true, uh, and I guess it goes back to when you originally said, I know, what it is I know. It's that piece of me that knows. So
Mhm.
that's how I define me.
Beautiful. Yeah. So let's have a look at this. And and I'm of course speaking to you, but speaking to the listeners, right? So you have, you said, it's that part of me that has a perspective or that has a viewpoint or that has a particular belief. If you have a viewpoint or you have a belief, that belief, that viewpoint is not you. It cannot be. Because just like I have a car, the car is not me. I have a viewpoint. It's something that I have, but it's certainly not me. It's something external. It's something that I take on. It's something that I position myself by, but it's not me. So if we don't know who is me, because me is not that thing that has a viewpoint, or me is not my viewpoint, because the minute I said my viewpoint, it's like I'm saying my car. So I know, oh, okay, that's not me then.
Hmm.
So I'll say something that people, especially spiritually, find that it contradicts most of what they've kind of they kind of go by, but it actually works and is true if you have a look at it. So the big statement, the headline, spirituality is not energy. And I know that you didn't mention anything yet about energy, but most people view spirituality as a certain energy, or as a certain thing that I need to fuel or to feed or to energize by. And that is a fundamental fake reality. A fake reality is a piece of information that you're 100% sure is right, but when you use it, it doesn't bring you the expected results. So people have this thing that they're sure is right, but then they have issues with spirituality. They depressed and they say, I just need to get my energy right. But it doesn't solve the problem because they have this fake reality that spirituality is energy and that there's some kind of a connection between the two. And the reason it's not the case is because energy, by definition, is something in the physical universe. This universe has energy as one of its key components. Energy is a physical thing. There's no doubt about it. We can prove it. Essentially, if I pick this up, I have potential here. And what is the difference between potential, energy, force? This is potential, unreleased energy. Energy is when I let it go and it falls. The release of potential, which is physical, is energy. And when it makes an impact, here we have force. So potential, release of potential, which is energy, force. But energy is physical. So spirituality, or the spirit, and anybody spiritual agrees that the spirit is not physical. Anyone that's spiritual will agree with that. So how can something that is not physical have energy? And when you
Doesn't,
really look at that, go ahead.
yeah, well, it doesn't have energy. It is energy because everything is
It's
energy.
everything physical is an energy, for sure. Everything physical has an energy, is an energy, for sure. But energy is physical. So how can the spirit be an energy? I know it's different. I know it makes you go, but everybody says that it's if spirituality is energy. I know. But it's a fundamental flaw in and flaw. I'm just saying it not in a condescending way or in a wrong way. It's just something that as we go, we improve upon a subject. And if we look, and if we this is a breakthrough, is to say, hold on a second, spirituality cannot be energy. A spirit is not energy. Because if it was an energy, you're saying that the spirit is physical. That's what you're saying. Not you, yeah, the person saying it. The average person that teaches that. And you go, but so what you're doing is you're actually the person that says, look, the spirit is energy, or that works with energy in order to heal the spirit, is actually degrading this thing that is spiritual, that's in a totally different universe, and saying it's just physical. The spirit is just another physical component. The spirit is a physical thing. That's all we're, yeah, it's just physical. Welcome to our world, spirit. Whereas no, it's not spirit, it's not physical. You're not an energy, you are a spirit.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. I know that it's quite different because many people say no, but everybody says, or I've learned it that way, or but that's one of the key things is to say, what is the spirit then? If it's not an energy, what is it? If it's not physical, what is it?
Yeah,
So
there's the concept of oneness uh, that is that is floating out there that we are all one. So you and I, there there is no other. There is only the one. And as we try to sort of wrap our heads around that concept, how can we be one when we live in a world of duality? And your father got into this a bit in his discussion about the fact that we need duality and why we need duality, because we We need to know that hot is hot as opposed to cold, and light is different from dark, and it's how we define the world. So to look at another person and say we are one, to look at a group of people and say we are one, and there is no difference. Physically, we may look differently, but beyond the physical, that's a different reality. And
Yeah, I'll tell you my viewpoint. Sorry, go on. No,
that's why I'm here to find out your viewpoint. So go for it.
yeah. Let's have a look at the We Are One, okay? So with all due respect to anyone I've ever met, I'm not them. I'm just not, we're not one because they're different to me in many different senses. So it's not that we're all one, because if we're all one, it's one big mishmash and everything's equal to everything. And one of the components of insanity is to think that everything equals to everything. Like, for example, if I think that um, uh, ant on the floor equals death, I'm crazy. If I think that a mouse equals elephant, I'm crazy. If I think that today equals yesterday, I'm crazy. It's two different moments. So you cannot have this equals that, because that creates a mishmash. The key for sanity, one of the component parts, is the ability to differentiate. I can find this is the red one, this is the blue one, this is the green one. And this one's a circle, and this one's a cube, and this one's a triangle. You understand? There has to be differentiation. There has to be the ability to say, wow, this is the same though. Here's how they're identical. This red circle and this red circle are the same. Okay, I can see that. Perfect. And I need to figure out what's similar to each other. Like, okay, this is a green cube and this is a red cube. They're similar, they're not the same. So if I can spot similarities, differences, and identities, I'm logical. The minute that everything's everything, I'm illogical. I become cuckoo, I become insane. And that's one of the things that I would say, look, if we're all one, then what? I mean, then can you go to work for me tomorrow? Can you go in my place to my office and work for me, because it's you or me, and it just doesn't. We're separate in my view, right? We're separate people. However, what is meant here? What is meant when they say that life has 8 parts? Okay, you have 8 urges through which you aim to survive. The first one is you as an individual. You have hobbies, you have passions, you have brush your teeth, you take care of your body, you do things for you, which is one part of life. It's how you manage you day to day. Next, you have the family unit and sex as a means of procreation. That's another way that we aim to survive as a family. And as we expand, you have the groups that you're a part of. You have a business, you're on a sports team, you have different groups, friend groups that you're a part of, and you aim to survive through your friends and through your groups that you're a part of. Fourth, you have mankind. Mankind as a whole is we have an urge to survive as mankind. We have community cleanups, and we have taking care of our planet because we want to survive better as mankind. And this kicks in when there's some kind of if there was an alien invasion today, you'll see all of a sudden everything will stop, and all wars, all issues will stop, and everyone will become mankind for a second, because there's a bigger thing than us right now. So we better act like mankind. And when you have that viewpoint of mankind, I'm part of mankind, that's the next way to survive, or the next way urge that we survive through. Fifth, you have plants and animals. We want to survive through plants and animals. We need that for survival. If there were no trees today, tomorrow the trees were gone, we would all die. So you need plants, you need animals, you have dogs, you have pets, you have all kinds of different ways that we like to survive through plants and animals. Sixth, you have the physical world around us. The cell phone that you have, the shirts you wear, the car you drive, the house you're in. We need the physical, material world to be in this, to survive. Seven, you have spirituality. You as a spiritual being, you have to be able to know and understand what it means to be a spirit and the urge to survive spiritually. If you don't survive spiritually, it's also you don't survive in this game. If you have a spiritual mess, you're in the dumps. So you need to be able to survive spiritually, right? Mentally, you'll be sad and it just won't go well. And eighth is the supreme being. And that means different things for different people. But the supreme being, what many people call God, or some kind of a higher power that is over everything. And those 8 parts encompasses survival. So that tells you that part of my urge to survive is to see you survive, because you're part of my 8 parts. If my dog doesn't do so well, I don't do so well. If the second part, my family has trouble, if I have a big upset with my wife, I'm not going to do so well in my groups. I'm going to go to work the next day and not perform so well. So all the parts of life actually go hand in hand. And when people say, look, we are one, I think what they're trying to say is we can affect one another. We all are surviving in this thing together. I still think that there's a differentiation between us, me and anyone else. That's how I can tell you this is, my wife is not me, my wife is my wife, and I am me, and you are Bob, and there's different people, and but we aim to survive together. And the minute that somebody says, no, I'm an individual, I'm going to do only what's best for me, or I'm going to just make it for me, I'm going to go and start selling drugs because it makes me lots of money, but it destroys families, it destroys groups, it hurts mankind, it creates ripples of bad, you're not really surviving. It's not the right thing to do. So how do you know if something is right or wrong? Simply, many people want to do the right thing. The right thing is what does the most good for the most of these 8 parts. And if it does more harm for more of these 8 parts, for more of the parts of life, it's wrong. It doesn't mean that all 8 have to be good. If I invent a cure that kills 1 person but saves 1 million, it's the right thing to do. Kill the 1 person. I know it's sad, somebody had to die, but we saved 1 million. Around our 8 parts, it's the right thing to do. So if I want to sell drugs and it makes me, number 1, lots of money and I get to drive a nice car, wonderful, but it hurts the other 8 parts, it's the wrong thing to do. It's wrong. So we are for sure connected in this game of life. But spiritually, what the spirit is not just one big blob that's all of us. That's not the case either.
Okay. So we finally got at your your spiritual beliefs, which is what I was trying to hone in on. So we're good there. Okay, it's getting time to wrap up. And at the end
it's been fun.
of each of these discussions, I asked the guest to leave our audience with a few words of wisdom. Actually, you just did that, but perhaps you have prepared something or something else to lead the audience with, and this is your time to do that.
Thank you. First of all, I have nothing prepared. None of this has been prepared. It's just, off the cuff conversation. So first of all, we never really yet defined what the spirit is. And if somebody wants to actually get the answers for that, they're welcome to speak to us and we will show you conclusively that you are not energy, but what you are. And once you know that, you will see that all of a sudden things start to improve. And then you feel, well, maybe this is what I've been looking for in terms of what is the spirit. Not against various spiritual practices, and they're all beautiful and they all improve people. Just I want to better understand what the spirit is. So we haven't yet touched upon that, but one of the characteristics of the spirit is And so, one of the things I will encourage the listeners as an unprepared statement is that go through one day, 1 hour of just saying, I know. Just practice when you don't know. And you would have said, I don't know. Just pretend as a total joke at the beginning. Just imagine, just make it up that you know and invent wacky ideas why you know. Wacky things that don't make sense. I know because I got sprinkled a powder on my head and now I know what to do here. Just invent, make up ideas as to why you do know. Assume for a millisecond that you know. And that will start to practice this spiritual muscle. It's certainly not a muscle, but a spiritual muscle that will get you to back to some of your native abilities, which is the truth, which is that you do know. And that's something that you start to gradually apply to situations. Assume you know. Much like at the beginning of the conversation, I told you my parents, from a very young age, just assumed I know. They just spoke to me like he knows. Of course, they, as I said, they explain things, and of course, you of course need to learn in life, but start to assume that you know. Most of the time, people, I don't know what to do. I'm going to call my friend. I'm going to call this. I'm going to ask a book. I'm going to watch a YouTube video. I don't know. Just assume you know for a little bit. And even if it doesn't go so well, it's fine. Assume you know again, newly. And sometimes it's even good. Don't even check. Assume you know and do it. You're in doubt, just assume you know and do it. Go. Boom. Move. And you'll see that it'll get you A, into action, and B, you'll feel better.
Well, those were great, unprepared words of wisdom.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And as always, audience, take what resonates with you and incorporate it into your life. Put the rest on a shelf and pull it down when you're ready. Until next time, this has been your spiritual journey.